Hello and welcome back. We are
The Forgotten Truth.
That is right. And today we're going to talk about what Putin is doing in Ukraine and why he's doing it.
And the crisis going on.
Now, Putin is telling his soldiers and his citizens that they're trying to eliminate the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Now, that's not true. He's trying to regain the land that he lost in these past decades in the Cold War. Now, 2% of Ukraine is considered fascist. Now, what do you think about that?
So really, it's 2% of Ukraine is extreme nationalists and extreme people who have similar beliefs to what the Nazi Party did. So that is wrong, but Putin can't use that to justify an invasion where only 2% of the population actually believes in that.
Russia is being quote-unquote pummeled by Ukraine and is not expecting them to hold up a fight. But this recent interview where Zelensky was talking to the citizens and the rest of the world, he was telling them that they're not backing down. That Ukraine is going to win. They said that Russia will lose, and they are winning. Russia is losing.
Now, main reason for that is because Ukraine is getting support and better technology from the Americas. We're giving them support. British, Polish, German, all these different countries are giving them advanced technology from the Cold War, which isn't that advanced, or the Vietnam War, or absolute, like, the best we have. Now, Russia is still using only technology from the Cold War, and they're completely outdated.
Now, Ukraine us sending over recently this billion-dollar bill, the multi-billion-dollar bill for relief aid, and us sending over weapons, that is hurting us. And a lot of the Republicans are angry that they're selling money over, they're giving money to them, and that we're sending all of our I forgot the name of the actual company, but they make weapons, and then we're running out of those for our defense.
Really, I mean, we should support Ukraine, but we're against Russia in this. But just sending money isn't going to do anything other than decrease our reputation. If you're just overflowing Ukraine with money, all that's doing is hurting us. Yeah, it might be helping them, but it'd be a better help if we actually did something and had troops in Ukraine helping war. Don't you agree with that?
I do. Now, it's the same thing with the gas prices. We are using, because of this inflation over there from the pipeline, we are having to open up our reserves, which is hurting us for the future if we need to use it for war or if something else bad happens. Now, Russia has committed multiple war crimes, including bombing places with refugees.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's horrible. It is really horrible. He's killing people that are trying to escape this war.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also leaving his own soldiers on the battlegrounds.
There's documented times of where soldiers were left in the ice and the Russian troops didn't go back for them because Putin is also lying to his civilians about how the war is going. He's not counting all of his soldiers' deaths because he doesn't want the Russian people to think that they're losing or that it is a war that shouldn't be happening.
He has also committed mass genocide and is bombing places where they know there are civilians. He did bomb was it a nursery?
Mm-hmm.
It was a nursery. Yeah, it's horrible. He's stupid. Now, NATO is taking no action against them. What do you think about that? What do you think about them not doing anything?
Well, really, since Ukraine isn't part of NATO, they wouldn't be doing anything anyway. But NATO is definitely trying to get Ukraine part of them so that they can help out.
Yeah. Now, Ukraine is trying to join NATO, which is why Russia is actually trying to take it back. Or he's trying to take it before they join NATO, because then if they do, then we're going to get involved. All the NATO countries are going to get involved, and Russia's going to go down. Now, other countries like Sweden are joining NATO.
Or in the process of.
In the process of joining NATO.
So really, all of these Eastern European countries are starting to join NATO, which is scaring Russia even more and more, because if Russia is surrounded by NATO countries, there could be, they would have every disadvantage in the war. Yeah, they have their northern side, which is all ice and would be almost impossible to invade through or get troops through. But if that entire side is allied forces, then they can't really do anything.
Yep. Now, Russia is scared that they will join Ukraine because then they'll be surrounded by NATO countries. Now, the right side of them still is China, which is a communist, country, but he'll be surrounded by NATO countries on the east or the west and the south sides. Now, what do you think about that? How do you think he will react if that happens? If he gets surrounded?
Well, I think he'll just kind of play dumb in a way, because if he's surrounded, he's going to try to take back what he's done. If he knows he's going to lose a war, he's going to try to prevent a war. Like Ukraine, he only did it because he thought he would just wipe them out real fast. They just give up because their military and their firepower was quote unquote 3 times larger, even though Ukraine has showed that number doesn't matter at all because they have better technology, higher troop morale, and better people fighting for them.
Now, Ukraine is the biggest country in Europe, other than Russia, other than half of Russia.
Yeah, it's the second biggest country in Europe after Russia.
Now, Russian or Ukrainian, both languages work here.
Kind of like how during World War II, how like the only reason the Allied forces let Germany or the Nazis invade Austria was because Austria was mostly German speaking and mostly native German. So they're like, oh, okay. And I forget what percent it was, but they said if this country has blank amount of percent, then it's all right for you to take it back.
Yep, and then
it escalated out of control, which is most likely what's going to happen here.
That's also one of the reasons he's invading Ukraine is because he believes that it is his because they speak Russian. And it's I mean, yes, they speak Russian, but that's because what
it used to be part of the Soviet Union.
Yep. Now, Ukraine is among the most educated nation in the world. They have their children are very educated, and they're having to leave and go to different countries like Poland, and luckily there are teachers in Poland that are teaching these Ukrainian refugees, but it's just sad that they're having to leave their houses, leaving their fathers in Ukraine to either fight or to be like a second defense. But
so I feel like China is really watching and seeing what's going on, because if Russia gets away with taking Ukraine, there's almost the exact same situation with China and Taiwan. Taiwan used to be part of China until it broke off and became it doesn't support communism. So China is probably going to seize the opportunity and take Taiwan if they believe that they could. Taiwan's part of NATO.
That is what we are afraid of, that China will take over Taiwan.
Now
because they speak Chinese, or most of it speaks Chinese, and it will happen if Russia takes over Ukraine. It will do the same thing that they did.
Now that's the main threat for the world going into World War III, because 2 of the biggest superpowers both want these smaller countries that were once part of them, and they're going to seize any opportunity they have to take those countries, even if they're part of NATO. Now, if we do escalate into a World War III, how do you feel about the drafting options? Because apparently the drafting is super strict. If you have ADHD, you can't be drafted. If you have any disability, you can't be drafted. You have to graduate high school, which nowadays a lot of kids aren't graduating, at least where we live. Now, and I mean, you couldn't be drafted because you are a diabetic.
Yeah, I think the draft is, we still sign up for the draft when you turn 18. You get a draft thing in the mail, but I think the draft is necessary if it comes down to it. Now, hopefully it won't come down to it in if World War III happens, and hopefully that our military will be able to take care of it. But also, if World War III happens, it will be because it took over Ukraine, and hopefully we will either join other countries in stopping them, and it'll end quickly, or it'll just be us and maybe some other smaller countries, but our military will hopefully be able to take care of it. But
and all of this ties together with all the issues we're having now, like how the draft, women don't have to sign up for the draft, but if these feminists or these LGBTQ members are trying to argue that men and women both have the exact same rights and should be the exact same or even switch, then why aren't women being forced to sign up for the draft? I mean, they're just hypocrites.
I just don't think they haven't.
They're all just hypocrites.
I just think they haven't come down to it. They haven't really thought of that yet about the draft, and they won't want to sign the draft.
They won't want to sign the draft because they're selfish.
They won't want it yet. They won't. They just want to be treated equal, but they won't be able to. They won't want to sign the draft because they don't want to go to war. But I just think that's stupid.
Now, how do you feel about the troop morale of Russia? I mean, some of the troops are understanding that they're getting lied to, and they're going onto the Ukrainian side. They're fighting for Ukraine, even though they were once Russian soldiers.
No, yeah, most of them don't know what's going on. They just think they're fighting, like we said at the beginning, neo-Nazis. But some of them do know, and that what you said, they're going over to the side. But I just think they're like, I can't really describe it. They're not like happy or anything. Of course not, because they're in like war. But they're not. I feel like they're just feeling like they're just doing their job.
They're feeling guilt.
I don't think they're feeling guilt. The ones that don't know what's going on, I think they just like, okay, we're doing our jobs.
No, I mean the ones that are switching to the Ukrainian.
Oh no, yeah, they're feeling guilt, and they're feeling
because
they're feeling that their country has wronged them, which they obviously have, and yeah,
they're feeling that in order to kind of make up for it, they need to join their force because they're being told to bomb places that have children in them. Up to 7,000 civilians have died during this crisis. It's insane. They're being told to bomb places with civilian children and civilian parents, and that's just messed up. So how do you feel about the amount of children being killed in Ukraine?
It's horrible. A lot of kids are being killed in Ukraine now. He's targeting them. He targeted the nursery, as we talked about earlier, and but like I said at the beginning, he's just trying to do it. He's just trying to think do what he thinks is right, and it's just stupid.
So, also another thing that's going on over there is if Ukraine does wind up joining NATO, then we're all forced into the war. Now, it's a great thing if they do join NATO, but instead of waiting, when inevitably if they're not invaded, they're gonna join NATO. If they're going to, why aren't we doing anything now? Why aren't we sending troops?
Because they're not part of Ukraine.
Yeah, they're not part of NATO, but if they're going to be, why wait for the Russian forces to get stronger?
What if they don't? Exactly. So that Russian forces will get stronger and they will take over Ukraine.
But don't you think they'll just repeat Hitler? Don't they think,
yes,
they obviously understand that Putin's going to keep going, and eventually he's going to go to Poland, which is a NATO country.
And that is all we have today on the podcast.
Tune in next time.